A fool learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And so I want you to learn from the mistakes that I have made. 2 months ago, I made a video about the 4 intro beginner training mistakes that I made as a new cyclist, and it was received well. And so today I'm going to talk about 4 more mistakes that I've made as more of an amateur cyclist. I'm Ely, strength coach for cyclists. Let's dive right in. Mistake number 1 is setting my FTP too high compared to what I was able to do. And this is more of an ego problem for me because I was doing so much training at the time and I expected that my FTP would be a lot higher than it actually was. And so what it actually was, according to a ramp test I did, was 266. Now, I just didn't agree. I was like, you know what? I feel a lot stronger. I feel like 266 is tempo now. This is easy. This is nothing. And I didn't want to be down in the 260. I felt like, you know what? I should be 280. By now, with all this training, I should be 280. And so I went ahead on Zwift, on my Garmin, set it as 280. Lo and behold, when training came around and now, you know, we're setting 90% of FTP, it's a lot higher. And I'm feeling like I'm getting gassed a lot quicker with that 280. I'm like, what is happening? How come I'm not able to hold this like 100% of FTP for 25 minutes? Because it was actually 110% or whatever, 105, 108%. So actually I was working VO2 max instead of lactate threshold. And so it's important to be honest with yourself. Be honest and ask yourself, am I setting my FTP way higher than it actually is because I want it to be there? If you want it to be there, great. Train and get it there. But don't allow your ego to make your decisions for you when it comes to training, because bringing up the intensity way higher than you're supposed to be training is actually going to cost you. If intensity is too high, you're not going to recover as quick. It's going to tax your body way more than you expect it to, and the whole training plan will just be off kilter. Mistake number 2 is focusing on the physical side of things. Merry Christmas, by the way, or Merry Crustmas, haha. Focusing on the physical side of things instead of the mental side of things. Now, here's what I mean by that. A lot of athletes can be very physically strong, but mentally they don't have the discipline to keep going when things are tough, when there's pain, etc. And on the other side of this, some athletes may not be as physically strong, but mentally they can endure the pain, they can endure the discomfort and keep pushing past the stronger, stronger athletes. And this is what I like to call mental discipline, you know, the ability to take in pain and take in discomfort and just take it as like okay, this is information. This isn't a bad thing. Yes, it hurts. Yes, this is uncomfortable, and that's fine. Turning your brain off after that, it's just like a lot of the time we become subject to our minds. And this is my story with this, you know, and I'm on the trainer downstairs in my little pain cave and I'm doing 300 watts for 5 minutes. Okay, the first minute, the first 90 seconds is easy. And then after you get past that 90 seconds, my legs are starting to burn, and mentally that's where it becomes a battle because you're not halfway. So you're like, oh my gosh, this is already hurting and I'm not even halfway. And you begin thinking to yourself, I can't do this. This hurts. This sucks. Oh, what if my legs cramp up? What if I'm not able to continue pushing? This mental battle that's happening. And what you have to do is train yourself mentally to accept the discomfort, accept the pain, take it as information. It's not a bad thing. And just keep moving. Turn off the brain. In Proverbs, King Solomon says, if you fall in a time of adversity, your strength is small. In other words, if you quit when times just get a little bit difficult, you got no strength, mentally or physically. So train your mental strength. How can you actually train mental strength? Well, number 1 is just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's doing that interval for an extra 3 seconds longer than it was prescribed. Maybe it's waking up 15, 20, 30 minutes earlier, even though the comfort of your bed is all nice. All of these things, you know, stacking up, small ways of pushing yourself a little bit harder mentally are going to actually help you in the long run. And the other side of training mentally is also just believing that you are able to do something. A big part of this comes down to visualization. You know, if you're able to visualize yourself getting to the goal that you've set for yourself, it'll go a long way. Number 3, the third mistake I've made is focusing on one specific metric that I think determines my success and ignoring all the other wins I've had. How is this a mistake? Let me illustrate. I actually just talked to a client today. This client has been working with me for 6 months with the original goal of weight loss. Now, normally when anybody starts some kind of training or fitness routine, it's for some extrinsic goal, for some specific metric that they're working towards. Maybe it's losing 20 pounds. Maybe it's getting to a 4 watt per kilo FTP. And for them, when they start the journey, that is what they think determines their success. 6 months later with working with this client, they have hit all these other goals that they set for themselves. They are fitting better in their clothes. They are moving a lot easier, lifting heavier, feeling stronger, looking better in the mirror. In every possible way, they've hit these other goals. But the one specific metric, which is the scale, is the same. And so a lot of the time what happens is because of this specific metric not moving, we ignore all the other wins, ignoring how we're feeling, ignoring how we're moving, ignoring how all other people are perceiving us, how we're fitting in our clothes, how we're performing on the bike, the mental side of things, the health side of things, social health, all of these other aspects, we ignore it because the one specific metric. Now for me, it's FTP, you do all this work and it's just like, oh, the FTP hasn't gone up, which I mentioned in point number 1. But it's not just FTP. In my business, it can be income. And so even though I am having all these other wins, I'm helping the athletes I work with experience insane wins and lose weight and get stronger and change their lives and play with their grandkids and no longer be in pain. For me, it's like, oh, this one specific metric is if my income doesn't hit X amount per month, then I'm not successful, that I'm not doing a good job. But that's not fair. And so open your eyes to focus on all the other wins that you're experiencing. And number 4, the 4th training mistake that I have made is everything off the bike. This isn't even training, but this just comes down to lifestyle. Your nutrition, your sleep, your recovery, your social environment. All of these things affect your training and affect how you recover and adapt to your training. Making sure your nutrition is in line. I did this way too often, is I didn't care about my protein intake. Protein is what's going to help you with muscle protein synthesis, with maintaining muscle mass, especially if you're in a caloric deficit, or building muscle mass that's going to help you perform better on the bike. If you don't care about your nutrition, you might as well toss out your training out the window. If you don't prioritize sleep, then recovery is just garbage and you're not going to adapt to your training either. So getting 3-4 hours of sleep, why don't you get 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 9 if that's possible? And even training in a poor social environment can have detrimental effects. If you don't set up a good environment for your strength training, for your on the bike training, if your pain cave is in the middle of your garage, I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe that's a good environment for you. But if it's, in the middle of the family, if your training environment is not set up to help you succeed, if you haven't cut out the distractions so you can mentally focus on the workout itself, if there are things that are red flags that you haven't addressed in your training environment, then that can have detrimental effects on your training. And so it's everything off the bike that you need to address as well. How are you eating? How are you sleeping? What's your environment look like? Do you have support from your family, from your wife or husband or kids? Do you have time? All of these things will affect your training. So there you have it. I hope you can take something. I hope you can learn from at least one of these mistakes and do something about it. By the way, if you're looking to excel in your on the bike performance, if you're looking to strength train, if you're looking to increase your VO2 max and FTP and do all of these things and become the best cyclist that you can be, I've put together a free group where I am putting in free trainings every single day about nutrition, about cycling, about strength training, and everything in between. You can click the link in the description to join the group. It's called Ride with Purpose. It's completely free. There's no risk involved and it's fully on me. So go ahead and join. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.